Hi, everyone. It's a kind of a cloudy winter day here at Dunrovin. And as you can tell by my Facebook posts and all of my photos, I am uber excited to get a camera down to the river. And, of course, it all started with getting a camera here on the bench first. This has been an experimental winter with web cameras, and I have to say, it is all due to James Wassam. And so I want you to all in your individual homes to give an applause to James. He's really done incredible work getting all of this lined up, digging ditches to bring coax cable and electricity, all the way over here first and then down to the river. And then, of course, James Garland really helped by building us an incredible tower, which we will look at in closer detail in a moment. But I wanted to talk about the bench bird feeding station. First of all, I have for a long time wanted to put a station out here, and primarily because this is what's known as an ecological edge. And edges where one kind of environment changes to another are really important to animals because the forest, in this particular case, the change from field to forest, provides cover for the birds and for the animals, and they kind of come sneaking out of the forest onto the field to get any kind of food resources that are on the field. So all biologists and ecologists know that edges are really, really important ecological zones. And I think particularly this summer, you will see a whole different group of birds from this bird feeding station than we are accustomed to seeing on the nest bird feeders. For example, we have Lewis's woodpeckers, and I'm quite certain that the beautiful wood ducks will come up to scavenge some of the seeds that are on the ground. And, of course, these little birds have been very, very messy. And they've created quite a little stash of seeds here on the ground, which the deer have just delighted in picking up. And they've provided us with a lot of good viewing this winter. So I'm really pleased with the position of this. We put these up temporarily. These are really our volleyball stanchions that we put up during parties for people to play volleyball. But I wanted to experiment with the locations relative to the camera and relative to Annie's tree, which seems to be doing just fine. And, of course, every time I look at it, I think of Annie, and I also think of you, since all of you gave us the certificate to buy the tree. And I think it's just worked out really well. I do have some long-term plans for some changes. I'd like to put in a actual water feature with some moving water instead of just a static bird bath, because I think the sounds of the water would be fun for during the winter as well, some circulating water. So we'll see where all this goes. I sure have a lot of fun thinking these things up and cogitating about them. But I've been really pleased with the way this has worked out, and Kelly and James brought some wood up here to give a little cover for the squirrels, and it seems to be working out fairly well. I hope you're enjoying it, because I sure am. All right, then let's go on down to the river camera. I'm just going to walk right on down there. And, man, I am over the top about this river camera, and so much so that now I want to switch out all the other cameras. I hope that some of you saw my post with the late night photos. There's a night light in the river camera that moves with the camera. And wow, that's just too cool. And I think that's really going to open up nighttime viewing to us in ways that we didn't anticipate. So I'm just really excited. So I'm going to head on down to the river camera. And in the meantime, if you're still there, are you there, James?
I'm here, yep.
Okay. Then if you would swivel the river camera around and kind of let people know what you're looking at, I'll make my way down there to the actual riverside, okay?
Yeah. So what we're looking at right now is the view straight back from the river cam. and you'll see Suzanne walking across the top of the bench area, walking through the fence, and she'll be coming down that steep hill here shortly. And we're getting a view straight from the river cam right now. We can actually see at night all the way back this way with the illuminated infrared lights. So that allows us to come through and spotlight a lot of different activity through here, which is amazing.
Hey, Jake, tell them how you got onto this particular type of camera.
Yeah, so we were doing research for the Nest Cam and trying to figure out ways that we could clean the dome without actually going up in a bucket truck and doing all of the hand cleaning that has to be done twice a year when it rains and snows and gets all kinds of stuff on it. And so in some of my research, I was able to find a camera provider or a group that had built their own housing with an integrated wiper and washer system, kind of like you would have for your car. And lo and behold, they actually do a lot of different webcams for wildlife around the world. A lot of their cams can be seen on explore.org and some of the other sites. But really great group of people, very passionate about the wildlife webcam industry, and they've developed a lot of products just for it. So we've been working with them over the past few months, and we're trying out one of their newer types of cameras here, and we're going to give it a really good test in our extreme Montana winter environment and see how it works. Right now, we're really impressed by it. It's not an Axis cam. It's actually a different type of camera called Dahua, and all of these cameras are typically made in China in a factory somewhere, but this cam in particular is kind of a white label camera, so it's not a specific brand necessarily. So it's a little bit more economical for us to use. But the picture quality is phenomenal. The night vision is phenomenal. The motorization is super fast and articulate. And we're just super excited to have it here. And one thing you will notice about this camera is that it is not a dome that hangs upside down. Suzanne will take a picture of it and post it a little bit later, but it actually is what's called a positioning camera, and it sits up on top of the mount and operates in a way that it can actually see straight up and down if we pointed it that way properly. So you're going to be able to see some great shots of the night sky, the birds, the osprey fishing, geese flying, and you'll also get to see the tops of the mountains. So without having the dome coming into into the shot of the frame there. So it'll be a great opportunity to get some shots that we haven't really seen before. Right now is... Oh, go ahead, Suzanne.
Well, I was going to say that if things work out really well, we may switch the Nest camera.
That's correct, yeah. We still got some testing to do technically, but because of the optics of this and the extended range and vision, we're really looking forward to possibly using these cameras in other locations, including the Nest. So it could work out really well. We've just got to run through some different technical tests. Right now, you may be seeing some different frame rate issues and things like that. So we're still very much in the test phase with this camera, but we're really excited to be showcasing it and see what it has to offer for us here. But it just gets some phenomenal views of the sights and sounds. It's got a microphone with it, so we'll be able to showcase the river and all the sounds that come through that. So it'll be amazing.
All right, you should see me now down at the river.
Yeah, we've got you.
All right. Well, I have to say, this is one of my favorite places on earth. And it really excites me to be able to share it with people. This is such a wonderful, calming, soothing place to be. It's sort of my daily meditation to come to the river. You know, a river is a living, breathing part of the of life. You know, it's water is life, and this is a veritable highway for wildlife of various sorts. And I'm sure we'll see a lot of things over the years that we would not otherwise see. I have, for example, down here, seen bear and cougar and moose, not often, but occasionally. And, of course, the wild horses and the elk across the way. And we'll be able to go all the way to the top of the mountains and get very good views of them. Not to mention moon rises. This is where the moon rises. And on a clear night, we have to be on the lookout for that in the near future. You can see the moon rise right over the mountains. So I'm going to come closer and take a picture of the actual camera so that I can post it and people can see what it looks like. It's very different than our other cameras. And I think that this tower you guys built is really working out. Don't you think, James?
I do, yeah. And I'll while you're walking there, I'll give a quick view of the tower from the camera location. You'll be able to see a little bit. There's the arm that sticks out. We've got some conduit that comes out around. Down below there, you can see the base of it. And I think you've probably seen some of that from Suzanne's photos and, of course, some of the live cam shots that we had. Right here down kind of in the middle of your screen right now, you'll see the actual microphone. There's a little thing that sticks out there, and that's actually the microphone windscreen. It keeps things nice and quiet when the wind's blowing. Anyway, that's the tower of the arm. There's the pole where the other temporary river camera was shooting all of our progress work. And it's also where our wireless relay shoots back to the bench location and then comes back around to the ranch office so we can broadcast. So, yeah, we'll come back around to Suzanne here, and we see her walking up. And there she is getting ready to take a picture of us.
That's right. I'm going to take a picture of you looking at me. And, man, this is a tiny little camera. And I am so pleased. For one thing, I don't want to be intrusive on the river. You know, people come to the river for solace and for comfort and for enjoyment. And I don't want to intrude on it. And I don't think this is going to. You know, it's really not that visible. It will be hidden by the tree. And so people won't be, you know, self-conscious. And you don't want to impede on people's enjoyment of the river. Now, one thing you will be able to watch is all of our horseback rides. And if you look upstream, James, if you turn the camera and look way upstream, there's a group of birds up there I just saw. I don't know what they are. They're on the water. But it's about as far as you can see is where the horses first cross the river. And they will go across and through the forest, and then they come back right behind where I am standing. So you'll be able to see the horses cross back from their ride across the river. Now, there are two ducks flying over me right now, two mallards. And I think eventually we're going to get to the point where we'll be able to get really good shots of the birds flying up and down the river as well. So this is...
Yeah. And it is going to be a little bit tricky getting used to the control of this camera because it can zoom in so tight. You know, we've got to be very, you know, have a lot of finesse on the controls. And we've got a couple different control panel options. And to it, we'll end up letting some remote operators help out with us when it's time. But we still got to get used to the control interface and fine-tune all the different elements. But it's just a very responsive camera, zooms in really nice, and moves very well. So we're excited about it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great, but it is a whole different system. And I find myself being kind of jerky in it right now. It'll take some time. And then there's a whole installation options that we're not quite familiar with yet. So James got his work cut out for him, getting it to the point where where somebody like me can effectively operate it. So, anyway, this is us. And this is just a huge step forward. I'm just so excited. I mean, this is just such a wonderful place. And all season, I hope that the river this year freezes so you can watch that. That's a magical thing to watch happen. And it's also a noisy thing. It gets very noisy. The river ice creaks and the river moves the ice around. It's a wonderful experience if you haven't been around a freezing river. So I hope that happens this winter and you can enjoy it. Does anybody have any questions that you can relate to me, James? Maybe we wait a second on the chat and see if anybody wants to say anything.
Yeah, right now we're just all reveling at the views of the river and how far this can zoom in the sky, the colors that it can capture is pretty phenomenal. Just the color profile. Some of your shots of the sunset earlier were phenomenal.
Yeah, I was just amazed when James turned it on. I could just hardly stand it. I mean, you can get such detail, and the photo I took last night of the bank across the river, I mean, you could see individual rocks. I was just amazed. Yeah.
Yeah, one question is kind of how far up the mountain we can go. And so we all know about these power lines at the top of the mountain. They're pretty far up there, right?
They're at the very top, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and highlight that area, and we'll zoom in a little bit closer, and we can get up there and just about count the nuts and bolts on the poles.
Yeah,
it's pretty phenomenal. We also have digital zoom that can be helpful at times, but it starts to get kind of blurry. The closer in you get. But it's a very just incredibly powerful camera, and the optics on it. I mean, we'll be able to count animals on the hillside.
Yeah, well, and our elk should be back, several times yet this winter. They normally come for the winter. This is the west-facing slope for these mountains, and that always clears with snow first. The south and the west-facing slopes are the ones that clear off with snow, and the animals know that, so they come.
Yeah, and even despite the camera being mounted so that it points straight up, we still get quite a bit of coverage down low. I mean, we're seeing almost directly down below where we are here, and we're not really missing a whole lot with having the camera mounted up on top of the arm like this. So it's really cool to test this out.
We've had beaver right here along this stretch of the river as well.
Suzanne, it looks like there were some beavers cutting down some trees right in front of you here. What's that all about?
Where is that?
Oh, right in front of the new stand. What are all these trees in the water?
Well, that was Beaver James and James.
We had
with their little saw and their grooming. What do you call that? That big arm that you had, the trimmer.
The tree trimmer. Yeah, so I'm panned around here looking at all the trees we had to clear away to get that view. It really wasn't too bad. The damage looks worse than it actually was, but we trimmed a few different limbs and made some paths so we can get a clear shot up the river. Once the trees limb out a little bit or leaf out a little bit more, we'll need to go back and trim some more, just the natural course of things. But we still wanted to keep it looking very natural. We didn't clear cut or anything. We want to maintain the stability of the bank, and we're very sensitive to all of that, but we did have to trim a few things and clear some space for us.
Yeah, one of the reasons we chose to put the camera here is it's a very stable bank with these big trees that the tower is right next to. And these trees are, they're big enough to be support and have good root systems, but they're not old enough that they're going to come down soon. Cottonwoods are famous for getting big, and then people call them vertical straws. I mean, they're very soft wood, and they really just suck up the water. and so that it makes them very prone to falling over in a stiff breeze. They're called widowmakers for that reason, because people who work in the forest around cottonwood trees, they sometimes come down. But these particular trees are young enough that they're going to be here another 50 years, and they've really stabilized the bank. This is a very stable portion of the bank, and you have to be very careful about that, because as you will see this spring, this river will flood, and you'll be able to witness it, and the river will come up, and the tower itself, the feet of the tower might well be underwater. And so this is, one of the reasons we put it right here is because of the stable bank, and also because we wanted to keep the camera itself kind of hidden away from people on the river, so they don't, feel that their privacy's been invaded.
Well, these trees on the corner act as a really good break for any debris coming downriver. There's some serious trees that come down this river in the runoff season, so this will keep our stand and everything really protected. And the fence line there, we've had the water up to the fence line, so it gets up a good 3 to 4 feet depending on the season. So we wanted to make sure all of our electricity, all of our hardware was well out of reach of that, and also sturdy enough to be able to, withstand debris running into it and things like that. So
exactly.
There's a lot of design that went into making sure this would stand the test of time.
For example, this huge tree that is a little bit downriver from me, wasn't there 2 years ago. It just floated up.
Wow.
And this is very common that trees this side just float up during the spring runoff. So, a river is really a live thing that has its own personality. It has its own characters. The channels move. Fortunately, in this particular section of the Bitterroot, the channel doesn't move that much, in part because we don't have a big bend right here. Where there's a real steep corner, that's where you get, the river cutting away the corner and cutting away the corner, and pretty soon it just goes off in another direction entirely. So, a pretty dynamic thing, and I'm really happy to share this river with you. I've always called it a clean and crystal clear and family-friendly river. It really is. It's healthy. You can swim in it. You can. It's not roaring along. It's not dangerous. I was always happy that my children grew up at a place where they could really enjoy the water and do it safely. So with that, unless there are other questions, I'll sign off. And I assume everybody sees my dogs here. Everywhere I go, my dogs go, of course. And Jewel has spent many a year fetching balls out of this river. And I have to say, one of the things that saddens me is that we got this camera up here too late for Jill to be doing that. And she was an absolute master at fetching in this river. If I threw a ball upstream, she would not swim towards the ball. She would swim to where the ball was going to be. Same thing with just if I threw it downstream, where she had to catch up to it, she would run down and then jump in, and she always timed it just perfectly. The ball would just float into her mouth. She was an expert. So I have visions of having some dog fetching trials down here where people can watch that kind of action. It's just so much fun. The water dogs they just love fetching out of the river. So her days for that over, but there are a lot of other dogs who love to do that. All right. I'm going to say goodbye.
All right. Well, thank you for the tour, Suzanne. Appreciate it. It was very informative.
Thank you very much, all of you. And this will be running within a couple of weeks. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Well, have a great day.
Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.